saw how clean this place was coming in?
Yes, sir. Your job is to keep it that way.
And no fourth floor, darling. Those patients need special care. Off limits to you.
I watched the film the second time today. I loved it. It's so good.
Oh,
I mean, the first thing that just kind of sprung to my mind was, I mean, I immediately jumped in this remembering how you'd been involved in the Purge. The Purge was kind of your baby, and that was all about letting people, not just young people, primarily younger people, break laws and commit crime, do everything that wasn't legal. And here there was quite a few instances where the people in this home are kind of telling Max that he needs to play by the rules now. So I'm quite curious what it was about, maybe after having done so many different The Purge films, what it was that you kind of made you decide to change tack a little bit with this one and kind of tell kids, you've got to follow the rules this time around.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'm happy you brought that up because that was like a recurring kind of like play by the rules, play by the rules. And finally, that was a thematic with Max and in life and stop doing the graffiti. And, you know, it was a man who I think, like Pete Davidson, doesn't like to play by the rule. I don't like to play by the rules either. So I hate when people just tell me to play by the rules. And so the idea was hopefully we break our third act without giving away what Max does. The third act is Max finally saying, I'm not going to play by the rules anymore. I'm not going to listen to these people, and I'm going to rebel against the powers that be who are dictating my existence right now. So in a weird way, I guess the third act mirrors the Purge in a way, in some ways, because it's this lawless, you know, where Max, our hero, hopefully finally says, okay, no more listening to you people. I'm now taking matters into my own hand and fighting back. But it's interesting that you picked up on that because that was a recurring line of dialogue we were playing with throughout the film about the idea of play by the rules. And because to me, it's a whole, the movie's really, it's a metaphor for what previous generations do to younger generations, what they're leaving, what they've done to the planet, what we're leaving the youth of the planet with. And this idea that there's a generational battle in the movie and Pete is taking on the whole boomer generation himself. And so he really can't play by the rules. He's going to have to fight back and get a little dirty, if that makes sense.
No, completely, yeah. So, I mean, I love the fact that it kind of tackles this generation difference and how we relate to the older people. I mean, I used to, when I was like 14, 15, 16, my mother used to work in a nursing home.
Oh, okay.
And I also, with school, I used to go to play cards and take the older people to kind of to the park and things like that. And it reminded me that even though maybe I was at that age, I was a little bit kind of, I felt like I was supposed to do that. I was kind of forced into it, a little bit like Max in a way, because it was kind of his get out of jail free card, if you will, no?
Exactly.
But at the same time, it was inevitable. It was unavoidable that he was going to create these relationships, these bonds with certain people in there, despite the generation gap. So I'm quite curious how you approach this generation gap and the relationships that kind of blossomed from that. That could then lean into the horror, because it's quite complicated to balance creating these bonds there, but also creating this sinister thing that's going on at the same time for Max, no?
It was a great juggling act, man. It's great that you bring that up, and that Adam and I, when we're writing the script, okay, we're like, we want people to empathize. We want people to, obviously, that's a big thing me in my writing. I'm like, because I do see a lot of movies that shorthand their first act, and I don't really care about the character's plight. Hence, I don't want to go on the journey. So we wanted to really embed ourselves in Max's plight. He's still grieving what happened in his youth. He's now, I think, working through some of those emotions, and he's bonding. He's starting to bond with people who we're going to slowly learn are not who they seem to be. So it is a very fine line because he's bonding with people who later on become something else. Not all of them, one of them, I think. So it was a great balancing act on who's he bonding with, can we turn that person, and hopefully everything we set up early on leads to what I hope is a shocking twist going into the third act. But it was interesting because the actors wrestled with the very thing you're talking about. Some of them wanted to truly bond with Pete. They're like, no, I am bonding. I love Pete. I love Max. And I'm like, well, do you? Do you really love Max? Because where are we going here? Don't forget the end game. Don't forget the long game. And that was a fine line. I think they were, as the audience is being fooled, the actors were being fooled because they're playing this strange game, right? So I don't want to give anything away, but it was quite a balancing act to how far does the game go? Are the bonds real? Are they fake? And that's what I hope the audience is starts feeling like what's real and what's fake in this game. And then we hopefully flip it on its head going into the third act.
Something that worked really, really well was the fact that it felt very much like a fever dream, not just when we get into the home, but right from the get-go, from the very beginning, which kind of it was a curious approach. It worked really well because it kind of keeps you on your toes, and you don't know whether what we're experiencing is real, a dream. I don't want to give too much away. I'm quite curious. Was that always your idea to kind of start the whole story from that kind of fever dream perspective? And was there any specific reason besides creating this underlying constant sense of dread, or was there something else there kind of related to the relationships and the older generation in the film as well?
It's a great question, and it really leads to, it's so funny. So I'm obsessed with films that aren't truly dreams. They're not depicting dreams or nightmares, but they feel like dreams or nightmares. I have a lot of sleeping problems in my own life, not to get too technical, not to get too much into my private life, but I've been plagued by night terrors since I'm a young man, and I wake up quite screaming quite often, and I don't sleep that much. And so I'm also obsessed with sleep and what it means and what it does. But my I'm jumping all over the place, but one of my first viewing experiences that changed my life was seeing Apocalypse Now. And I saw it way too young. My dad took me when I was about 8 years old. I love him for doing it. Maybe it was not the greatest parental move from most people's point of views, but he did it and it changed my life because I said this line to him when I left. I said, Pop, I don't know what I just saw. I don't really understand it, but I do feel like I just watched another man's dream. And that stayed with me forever. And I entered into film with this idea that films were a way to travel into other people's dreams and nightmares. Even if they weren't dreams and nightmares, we're really watching someone else's psyche. So, on a practical level, I love a film that makes me feel like I'm truly inside someone else's head. And I'm attracted to films like Three Women by Robert Altman. Even Rosemary's Baby was a great influence here. And some of the great psychological films of the 70s have this quality of you often don't know reality is a little shady. Some of the narrators are not trustworthy. You don't know if you're watching it, like Let's Scare Jessica to Death. So anyway, I'm babbling, but I love that you picked up on that because it was a very, I like to layer my frames with a lot of lens flaring, out of focus to give this. And the practical reason to do it is I think it keeps the audience somewhat in a little off kilter state so they don't know what's coming next. And I think that helps the horror genre specifically.
No, I mean the reason I asked that is I often maybe I dig too much into it and read too much between the lines, but I also felt that I mean obviously I imagine that that was one of the main reasons, but I wondered if maybe you wanted to kind of create this image of how older people might go through life, because I imagine older people, especially in somewhere like the home,
Yes.
their sensations of how they're going through life because they're stuck in the same place, and like one of the characters says that they end up dying of boredom in this place. No, I
Yeah.
imagine that kind of their mind ruminates all over the place as well, a bit like the film felt. No.
Especially for the fourth floor characters, since what they've gone through up there on the fourth floor, you can make right. So the argument is, I love the way you're interpreting it, and it might have been some subconscious thing through my DP doing that too, because we did want to bring in this sense of there's something off kilter in the lensing of the film. We did a little off color, like there's a Dutch angle. You just tilt the camera a little to the side. We used a certain lens where certain parts of the frame are out of focus to give this. We're seeing differently than we see in natural life every day, which is usually between a 25 lens and a 40 is how you and I see. We never use those lenses. We wanted to use something either shorter or longer than that. And I think it does create a sense of being off kilter. And I love that interpretation, man. I don't know if I consciously did that, but that's a wonderful interpretation of what we were doing.
Brilliant. Well, listen, before they pull me out, just one last question.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got we're not talking about Pete Davidson. Obviously, he's known primarily for his comedy and those kind of things. So I'm quite curious. I mean, this is such a dramatic role, and he does it he plays it so well. But at the same time, I can't imagine you and the rest of the cast and the crew not ending up corpsing. I'm not sure if that's the best word to use for an old people's home, but I can't imagine. I mean, I can imagine you must have ended up laughing so much, even though you're trying so hard not to. I mean, you said there that some of the cast were like, "Yeah, we want to really create this bond with Max now," but at the same time, creating this bond must have made it easier to kind of to corpse and kind of lose control of what was going on now.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were in stitches. I like to keep a very loose set where people feel they could say their ideas where it's not. I beat myself up, but I bring my negativity to me, not to everyone else. So I keep it loose and people could bring their ideas. And we did do, and one day, if I'm ever financially lucky to get to do this, we did do a take almost like if I was averaging 7 takes per setup, my 8th take, we'd always let Pete be funny. We said, we have Pete, let's let him loose. And John was quite funny. And Ethan Johnny Phillips, another actor, is hilarious. So we wanted to cut a film together of all the funny takes and make the comedy version of the home. So because we were cutting it up, and some of the seasoned actors are great joke tellers, like from, great jokes from back in the day. And Pete was feeding off them. So see the older generation work, like older generation theater guys working with who do great comedy, like Ethan Johnny Phillips, and he and Pete were just feeding. It's like old humor versus new humor. It was really fun, man. It was a great shoot.
There could be some great extras for the Blu-ray now when it comes
Exactly,
out.
dude. Exactly.
Listen, they're pulling me out. So thank you so much for your time, James. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. I
Oh,
love the film to
great
bits.
question.
And
Thank you so much.
congratulations. I saw that it was picked up for Sieges and Fright Fest as well, I believe. No, is that right?
Yes, what I just heard. It's
Congratulations on that as well. Yeah, all over the place. Yeah, it doesn't stop.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's great.
Howard.
All the
Thank you
best
so
then.
much.
Thank you so much for your time. Cheers then.
Okay,
Take care.
thank
Bye.
Sometimes, when things are bad on the outside, we have to look on the inside.